youngest, or?
I was the youngest. When we came here from Poland, I was the youngest. Then it was Morton, then Goldie, then Dorothy, then Max, then Sam, and then Sally, who was your great grandmother, right? Sally was your great grandmother. And I am your great great aunt. Not great aunt, but great great aunt, right? Double great. And I think I was about 9 months old. We came here from Malava, and from Malava we went to Rotterdam to take the boat. The name of the boat was the Rindam. And when we were ready to get on the boat, I had pneumonia and we couldn't go. So I had to go to the hospital. And I was in the hospital for 2 months. And so they stayed. My mom had to come in and nurse me every day. It was difficult for them. And after 2 months, they finally got a boat and came here. Mom said she never saw such delicious food in all her life, but everybody was seasick and couldn't eat. And Morton was the only one that wasn't seasick. He was 3 years old, and he ran all over the boat and kept telling everybody on the boat, "I'm going to America to see my grandfather." Everybody on the boat. And they all loved him. He was so cute. Morton had white hair and blue eyes. He was so adorable. And he was the only one that wasn't seasick. And Mom said she never saw such delicious food. It's a shame we couldn't eat. But I was being nursed. I was still too young to eat anyhow. And then this is a coincidence that you won't believe. Our name used to be Wyszynski in Poland. And one day Pop was walking around in Rotterdam, and a man came over to him, and this is so hard to believe, it's like a miracle, and said to my father, "Do you know where I could find somebody by the name of Wyszynski?" And here was my father. He said, "I'm Wyszynski." It was my mother's uncle. And what a coincidence. Isn't that a coincidence? That he bumped into my father and asked him if he knew Wyszynski. It was my mother's uncle, came from England to see us while we were there. Mom had a lot of relatives living in England, and so did Pop. They all went to see him. I'm the only one that didn't go to England to visit them. Dorothy, Sally, Goldie didn't go. Morton went with Sonny. And it was Pop's sister. She was little, and he was tall. They looked like Mutt and Jeff. Not good looking. I have a picture of them. I'll show it to you one day. I'll show you the
Who is it?
photographs. And they had 3 sets of twins. Would you believe it? Their name was Levin. The man she married was named Levin. And one of the sons used to come visit us on Warrington Avenue when we lived there. But since Mom and Pop died, we never heard from anybody again. And our other relatives lived in Mexico because the borders were closed and they couldn't get into the United States anymore. And Andy, your cousin Andy, went to see them all the time. And so did Sally, I think, and Dorothy went to Mexico too to see them. I'm not sure. I'm the only one that never went to visit them because of the marriage, the kind of marriage I had. If I'd say no, he'd say yes. If I'd say yes, he'd say no. He was always Moshe Kapoya, whatever that is in Jewish. And then when we came here, Grandmom's father lived here. That's why we came here. He brought us over here. He had a shoe store on South Street.
Yeah, the shoe store. I remember.
Do you remember the shoe store?
What was it called?
Goodman. Goodman Shoes. You remember it probably when Aunt Lily took it over. Florine's mother took it over when Grandpa died. Anyhow, when Mom's mother died, Mom was an only child. he came and buried his wife and came back with a new wife, a young gal, and he forgot about his daughter. Once they have a new wife, they forget about their daughter. And then a cousin came to visit us in Poland, and he brought us a cake of Lifebuoy soap because he heard that in Poland they didn't have soap. And then he wrote to, and then when he came back, he told Grandpa, "Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You never write her letters. Now that you have a new wife, she never hears from you. You never write her letters. Nothing. You forgot about her already. She was your only daughter. Mom was an only child." So he writes a letter and telling her, "Do you want $2,000 or do you want me to bring you to this country?" They didn't know what to do because they loved it that time. They loved it, Malava. It was right on the border of Germany where we lived. And the Germans at that time were very good to us. They weren't our enemy. And it was only after World War I, when they lost the war, they lost the king. They never had a king, and that's when Hitler took power. So we're lucky we got out of there. So my father didn't know what to do, whether to take the $2,000 or to and stay in Poland or come to this country. So he went to a rabbi and asked the rabbi for advice. So the rabbi said, "Well, if I were you, I think you should go to America." So Mom wrote to her father and said we decided to come to America. So we did, and Grandpa made a lot of money. And the minute we got there, full of rats, Morton got scarlet fever and diphtheria and had to be in the hospital for 2 months as soon as we got to this country. And my father said we didn't have any money and he couldn't talk English, but he felt we had to get out of that house. It's full of rats. So we rented a little house nearby. It was a little street, not far from there. It was half white and half black, the street of residents. And then my father started talking a little English and started dealing in jewelry again and made a little bit of money. And he said as soon as he gets enough money, we're going to buy a house, a decent house. And when he did, we bought a house at 4th and McKean. And we lived there till I was 16. And that was the best house we ever had. I loved it down there. We had wonderful neighbors. Everybody was like your own family. Because there was a depression, everybody helped everybody else. I remember when my girlfriend across the street was the first one to get a refrigerator. And she came out and gave everybody ice cubes as a treat. And then when Sam became a doctor, he had to open up an office. That's when we left that neighborhood and we moved to West Philly. And that was such a heartache for me to leave that neighborhood. I loved it there. And we were the only Jewish people in that block. And little kids would say, "The priest told us not to use a Jewish doctor. He's a Jew. We were told not to use him." But he stayed there.